Hey everybody, it's James Schofield again, and you might be wondering why I'm using my streaming setup to record a video. Yeah, that's right. So as you can see here, I've got my background and everything. I'm using the webcam that I use in order to stream when I do my gaming streaming, and that is because I received this in the mail. So this is the SC3 gaming audio mixer from Fifine. And I wanted to review this and take a look at it and see if this is going to be a viable solution to be able to live stream my gaming. Now, full disclosure before I get into the review, Fifine did send me this product to review. I'm receiving no other compensation other than the product itself. So this is just going to be my honest take on what I feel this will do in a live streaming situation. So that's why I set up my live streaming setup in order to do this video instead of my full production setup that I normally do. But before I get into it, let's just go ahead and take a look at what comes in the box with this SC3 gaming audio mixer. Okay, so I know it's a little thing, but right out the gate, I gotta say, purple, beautiful color for this box. So the SC3 has some features that are on there. It says it's got multi-purpose function keys, funny voice effects, easily instant use, brilliant RGB lighting, intuitive friendly panel, and 48-volt phantom power. It also has customized button, multifunction mixing, and real-time monitoring. But let's open it up. So of course, right out the gate, you're gonna go ahead and you're gonna get a manual. Now I will say that user's guide actually is pretty comprehensive. When you open it up, it becomes kind of a flyer version looking pamphlet. Has everything that you need already built in. I do got to say that the packaging that's in there, that styrofoam that they used, very nicely done. Again, for an inexpensive product, you wouldn't expect that. Taking the unit out of the box, and I gotta say right off the gate, it feels pretty nice in your hands. It's got these kind of rubberized sort of controls on them. The levers have just enough resistance where they don't feel cheap, but they're also not super hard to move up and down. And then what I really like too is it's got the meters right built in. So I like having that visual cue right out the gate in order to be able to easily reference how well your levels are looking. Taking a look at the back of the unit, the inputs and outputs, pretty standard here. You've got your standard USB-C, which will handle both power and data for you. You've got your line out. You've got a headphone jack built in, so you can take a listen. You've got a line in, so if you have an external device that you also want to plug in. Here's another thing that I really do like, though, as well. This does have also a headset input, so that way if you have a standard gaming headset, you can just plug right in and be able to go right away. And then you also have the dynamic and the condenser switch for the microphone that you're plugging in through XLR. Of course, this input as well can take XLR, or you can plug in with the standard 1/4-inch jack. Now here, of course, we just have your standard 3.5 millimeter cable that you can use for your line out or headphones, whatever you need to plug them into. Now here's a different one though. We've got a USB-C cable, and on the other end of this USB-C cable, it goes out to a USB-A, but that actually can come right off, and that is actually a USB-C cable with a USB-C to USB-A adapter. And in another fun surprise, this USB-C cable actually has a really decent length to it. Yeah, so as you can see, this product right here, it only costs like $50 in order to get it into your hands. And I gotta say, already right out the gate, for only $50, what is included in the box, pretty good setup. Other than just the standard, headphone cable, I mean, the USB cable alone, pretty good quality. Usually with these more kind of inexpensive products, they kind of skimp on some of the accessories that'll come with them. And I feel like Fifine did not do that. The cable itself, it feels like a nice quality cable. I do love that it automatically has that USB-C to USB-A adapter already built onto it. Because, the way that I have my streaming setup normally is, I'll have this plugged into a dock, and on my dock, I'll have that plugged in through USB-A. So it's nice to already have that adapter built in. But let's go ahead and we'll dive right into the specifications, and then we'll go over how everything will work. I'll play around with the buttons, show you how it all looks, and mix up a little bit too, and I'm going to switch out the mics as well to kind of show you the difference between using a standard dynamic microphone like what I'm using right now with my MV7 Plus over to what this will do with the phantom power setting for a condenser microphone, which would be my Rode NT1. So let's just dive into the specs here. So right out the gate, it says that it has a data transmission of USB 2.0. It has a sampling rate of 48 kilohertz or 44.1 kilohertz. It uses about 500 milliamps, a standard DC 5 volt power consumption. So really, you can plug this into a laptop, or you can even plug into a cell phone. Which, you know what? Hold on. Can you? Let's go ahead and give it a quick try and we'll see if it works. All right, so here we go. We've got this plugged into my phone. The interface, the Fifine SC3 plugged in using my MV7 Plus, plugged into the interface, which is now plugged into my cell phone in order to see how it sounds when it is plugged in to a cell phone. I said cell phone a lot. One little caveat that I'll put though, I do not recommend plugging a condenser microphone into the SC3 and then into your phone. Now, that's nothing on the interface itself. That has nothing to do with the interface. That's strictly your phones themselves. At least in my experience, plugging in a condenser microphone into your cell phone, even though it's USB-C, a lot of times I've run into issues where it kind of cuts in and out just because it's not able to handle phantom power very efficiently. So I do recommend, if you are going to do this kind of setup for whatever reason, definitely use only a dynamic microphone in order to make that setup work perfectly for you. All right, let's go back to the live stream. All right, yeah, I was pretty surprised. Having a board, an interface that will plug into your phone directly, pretty cool feature to have, to be honest with you. If you're going to be doing, let's say, a quick video that you want to do for like a YouTube short or something like that, you don't want to have to pull out all your gear, but you still want a little bit of a better quality coming out of your phone, at least for your audio. That is a pretty cool solution to have already built in. So let's go ahead and we'll dive back into the specifications. So the microphone input has a frequency response of 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. It has a dynamic range of 75 dB. And it has a gain range of 50 dB. Now, one thing I will point out with that being 50 dB is, currently right now, the way I have it set up with my microphone is with my MV7 Plus, I do have it set to about the halfway mark. You can crank it up a little bit more if you need to, but I feel like, at least in my ears, it's doing a pretty good job of taking care of this MV7 Plus, which usually with these Shure microphones that I usually have to crank up that gain, or what I'll normally do is I'll actually pop a fathead onto it and, pop in some phantom power to get a little more gain out of it. So it's pretty nice to not have to already plug that in. I will say in my ears, I am getting just a tad bit of that noise that you get when you crank up the gain, but I mean, it's not terrible. I'm going to listen back to it, of course, and I'll take a look. But of course, when you're listening to it, you be the judge on if you're hearing kind of that noise getting entered into the mix when you have to crank up the gain a little bit. Back to the specs. So this the headphones output has a same frequency response, 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. It has a dynamic range of 90 dB on this one. Okay, and then the line output has a same thing, frequency response of 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. It has a dynamic range of 85 dB. And its max output level is plus 10 dBV. Let's take a quick gander at the actual product itself here. So this is how it looks plugged in. As you can see, it's got a lot of fun colors already built in. The RGB looks really cool. And what else I like about this too, you can kind of customize the color set. So, I was able to kind of switch it with this button up here. So if you have a different preference on how you would like those colors to go, you can actually do that. But there's also a lot of other cool kind of fun features that are built into this particular interface. So as you can see, it's got a bunch of fun buttons. Like it has a custom button, these custom A, B, C, and D. What's kind of cool about that is you can kind of record your own little sound bites and store them in here as well. So let's go ahead and we'll test that out and we'll take a look. So if you long press down, you can long record and you now have a soundbite. And let's go ahead and we'll play it back. So if you long press down, you can long record and you now have a soundbite. Pretty cool that that's built into the interface. Again, for only $50, which is pretty sweet. Now, other features that this also has built in, you can actually change your voice.
So this is what it sounds like when you apply the male voice filter.
This is what it sounds like when you switch over to a female filter.
Here's one if you want to sound like a piggy.
And here's the last one if you want to sound like an elder.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool that that is already built in as well. Again, for only $50. What I really like about this too is this has a headset input. So, if you don't want to have to shell out the extra money to get one of these kind of big deal microphones, you can just use your standard gaming headset, plug it right in, and there you go. You've got a fully working audio setup for your live stream. Another little thing that it does is it does have a little toggle switch here where you can toggle between the dynamic and the condenser microphone. So depending on how you have it plugged in, you'll be able to adjust that. Okay, so now I did plug in the Rode NT1 5th gen condenser microphone into the Fifine. I went ahead and I switched it over to the 48 volt phantom power. So as you can see, the way the controls work is it lights up white when it's in use. So I do have that plugged in. I did switch over the toggle from dynamic to condenser. So according to the manual, this dynamic condenser switch, it switches to dynamic or condenser according to the element of your microphone that is connected to the XLR interface to minimize noise. And I did notice that when I definitely switch it over, it does help minimize that noise. Because if I switch it over to dynamic as I'm using here my condenser, I'm able to lower the volume here. Oh yeah, there's definitely clipping going on if I leave it on dynamic. But if I have it switched over to condenser, pretty good. Using this for the condenser microphone, pretty good as well. At least going into my ears when I'm plugged in direct into the interface. Now that's the other thing too is I want to say in terms of latency, because that's another issue that a lot of times you run into whenever you're using an interface is you might run into some latency issues. There's no latency on here. Now I will say, of course, when you do change your voice, yes, there's going to be some latency there, but again, that's because it's processing the voice a little bit. So if you're going to be using the change voice on feature on here, I will say go ahead and switch off the headset or the monitor, just because sometimes your brain will just get a little. But let's go ahead and we'll switch back over to the Shure MV7 Plus, and we'll go ahead and we'll finish out this video. I will say I really do like the controls. Again, for this being only $50, it actually feels like a pretty decent unit. The actual controls themselves have just enough resistance on them to where they don't feel cheap, but they're not really hard to adjust. I really like the feel of the buttons. They got that kind of rubberized button on them, which is nice. I do also like the simplicity of it. In order to record, you just long press as you're recording, you let go to stop, you single press it in order to pull it back up, which is really nice. So one thing that I will say, kind of what I like to do is, how does this stand up against, maybe other interfaces like maybe like, the Rodecaster or something along those lines. And I do got to say, price difference wise, obviously there's a huge price difference there. But if you don't want to have to shell out that kind of money, this is a great alternative. It sounds pretty good in my ears. Again, I'm going to listen back to it to make sure, but kind of playing around with it, this is a pretty fun setup for only $50. There are a little bit of caveats, again, that kind of noise that kind of gets entered in. I do have a little bit of a difficulty with that noise. I'm one of those people, like, I do not want any noise at all entering into either my headphones or, of course, in the final product when I'm listening back. I'm one of those people, like, I've got very sensitive ears when it comes to that sort of thing. But for most people, especially in a gaming or a live streaming setup, you're not going to notice that. So I would say that this product, I wouldn't use it to actually like record professional grade audio or anything like that with it. But I will say for, your standard live streaming or your gaming setup, this is a really good product to do that with. It's pretty versatile. Again, for only $50, it's pretty versatile, being able to take both condenser or dynamic microphones. The gain level is not terrible. Again, I have it set right now at about half on my MV7 Plus, which I always usually have to kind of really push my interfaces when I'm using this MV7 Plus in XLR mode. It's kind of similar to the SM7B, where typically you'd want to get like a cloud lifter or something along those lines. But this does a really good job of being able to take care of it. So this one does handle it really well, I will have to say. In terms of overall usage, You know, I do like, again, the size of it. It's very easy. It can sit on the desk. It's not going to be in the way. With a lot of the other interfaces, you know, sometimes they can get a little bulky. Like, you know, I usually use my Euphoria, my UMC 404 HD. I mean, that's a huge interface. This guy is pretty tiny, which is great too, because you can take this along with you. So, you know, if you're doing some sort of live streaming on location somewhere, or, you know, even if you just need, you know, a simple interface for XLR in a pinch, and you're going to be out and about, this is going to be great because you can just take it right with you. You know, it's not hard, and you don't need any sort of like wacky external power, any big deal like casing for it, because again, this can just fit right in your backpack. Super simple, and it's not going to take up a lot of real estate, which is great. I do like the RGB on it. Kind of pairs really nicely alongside my Stream Deck that I use and everything. It looks pretty good. But overall, I mean, this is a great product. You know, for again, if this costs, I will say, if this cost a little bit more in the price range of the other guys, I probably wouldn't go for it. But for $50, again, for what you're getting for $50, in my opinion, you're getting a lot of features and you're getting a pretty decent quality for that $50. So this is a great setup for somebody who's just starting out, or maybe like as some backup gear if you need it, or again, even as a mobile kind of unit to take along with you. Or, you know, again, I know that this wasn't the intention for this, but being able to plug this into a cell phone that has USB-C on it and actually have it work pretty well, pretty awesome. I would definitely recommend this to anybody, again, who, you know, is doing needs a simple setup. Or I would recommend this for anybody who doesn't have a lot of cash and is kind of starting out and just wants something that sounds pretty decent quality without having to spend a ton of money. This is the way to go. Because again, for only $50, you know, you can pair this with a microphone, and, you know, the Fifine microphones are actually also very inexpensive. I haven't been able to test any of those out yet, but from what I've heard in some of the reviews that I've seen, those are really good quality microphones, especially for the price. Yeah, so this is great. You know, this would be a great thing to have, you know, for only $50, you know, pair it with maybe one of the Fifine microphones. Because again, Fifine is a brand that I've been kind of wanting to look into anyways, because they make really inexpensive products. But from what I've seen, at least through the reviews and from other people's setups, they make pretty decent quality for that price. You know, I mean, their quality is definitely kind of in line with a lot of the higher end brands. You know, their kind of entry level gear that they have, you know, whether it be like your Shures or your Rodes or any of those along those lines. But, you know, how this would compare with those, again, you know, you're going to get more quality the higher up you go, obviously. But again, for $50, this one is probably going to outshine anything else that you'd see within that like 50 to, I'd say 50 to maybe like $100, maybe even $150 price range. This is probably going to do at least as good or sometimes even better than those setups. So what do you all think of the quality of this Fifine SC3 gaming and live streaming mixer? Let me know in the comments. And if you do like that product, feel free to click the links down below and you'll be able to get either the Fifine itself for the 50, or I did put a couple of the bundles that they have on Amazon as well. You can check those out. And while you're at it, if you don't have a microphone, make sure to check out some of the Fifine microphones as well. I'm looking forward to hopefully getting my hands on a couple of those microphones to be able to review as well. And, you know, if you haven't done so already, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. That way you can get notified anytime I have any sort of reviews or any other videos come out here on the channel. And as always, thanks for watching, and thanks for letting me give you some sound.